9 p.m. on Monday, the 21st of April, 1930, at the Olympia Theatre in Dublin. As the lights go down on a packed house, the Master of Ceremonies announces, "Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome onto the stage Mr. O'D in Mr. Harry O'Donovan's farce, Alive, Alive, Oh." With the performance area now swathed in light and the music reaching crescendo pitch, out walks Jimmy O'D to thunderous applause. Dressed in women's clothes, he grins, raises his hands to thank the audience, and the act begins. "Mr. O'D excels," said an Evening Herald reviewer, when he adopts the feminine role. This was James Augustine O'D, a former optician and heart of the row comedian, actor and singer from the Liberties area of Dublin. In November of the following year, Parlophone Records announced the release of 2 comic songs on one 78 RPM disc. Catalogued as E3817, Side A featured Ireland's Eye, and Side B, Biddy Mulligan, The Pride of the Coombe, the latter of which was to become Jimmy O'D's signature tune. The sheet music of Biddy Mulligan was subsequently published by Walton's Musical Instrument Galleries, and Waltons, in their wisdom, registered the song with the Library of Congress Copyright Office on the 1st of January 1939. Looking at the copyright card, it stated that Biddy Mulligan was written and composed by Seamus Kavanagh, but it would be more correct to state that the elusive and mysterious Seamus Kavanagh borrowed heavily from an older song. Biddy Mulligan, The Pride of the Coombe, was previously known as Mrs. Twankey, the Queen of the Coombe, and it had its first public performance in January 1890 at the Gaiety Theatre in Dublin. The song was one of many included in the Gaiety pantomime Aladdin, the Scamp and the Lamp, which opened at the theatre on St. Stephen's Day 1889. While playing the part of the Widow Twankey, Dublin-born comedian and singer Richard Purdon, son of Alderman Edward Purdon, former Lord Mayor of Dublin, delivered the song in a strong Dublin accent during the panto's second scene called The Marketplace Peking. The Weekly Irish Times remarked that Richard Purdon was the life and soul of the pantomime. But on the 25th of January, a reviewer for Irish Society went a step further and identified the songwriter, Mr. Purdon, as at last a hit with the public with W.S. North's new song, which, truly a Dublin-esque creation, was rapturously encored twice on Monday night. The man who composed this new song was William Samuel North, a 29-year-old singer, musician and songwriter from Rathfarnham, pen and ink sketches of whom regularly appeared in the Dublin Evening Herald. Apart from being principal tenor with the choirs at St. Patrick's Cathedral and the Chapel Royal at Dublin Castle, William Samuel North also conducted the Sandford Choral Society, a group of singers affiliated to Sandford Road Church of Ireland in Ranelagh. Sometimes referred to in newspaper columns as Queen of the Coombe or Pride of the Coombe, North's foot-tapping ditty went as follows. I'm a darling young widow who lives in a spot that is christened the Dublin Coombe, where the shops and the stores are all out in the street, and me palace consists of one room.
At Plunkett Street corner for 45 years I stood at me stall, 'tis no lie. And Jordan them years there's not one could be found to say black was the white of me eye. You may ramble through Clare and the county Kildare, and from Drogheda down to Macroom, but you never will meet a sweet widow like me, Mrs. Twankey, the pride of the Coombe. I sell apples and oranges, pears and split peas. I sell bullseyes and sugar sweet stick. On a Saturday night I'll sell second-hand clothes from me stall on the flower of the street. I sell fish on the Friday, spread out on a board, fresh codfish from out of the sea. Haddock and mackerel and herons, so sweet, the herons of famed Dublin Bay. You may ramble through Clare and the county Kildare, and from Drogheda down to Macroom, but you never will meet a sweet widow like me. I'm Mrs. Twankey, the queen of the Coombe. I'm Mrs. Twankey, the queen of the Coombe.
But William Samuel North did not confine himself to mere comical compositions. Just months before Aladdin opened at the Gaiety, Pullman and Co. of Dawson Street in Dublin published Brothers in Arms, North's song about the horrors of the Crimean War, and far removed from Mrs. Twankey, the Queen of the Coombe. North also composed the music for Three Brave Blacksmiths, the words of which were written by T.D. Sullivan, the writer of God Save Ireland. Published by Pullman in November 1889, this song was written in honour of John Maguire, Martin Heaney and Joseph Maloney, blacksmiths from County Clare who, in 1888, were sent to prison for refusing to offer their services to the local landlord. It is not known what became of William Samuel North, but from the 1930s onwards, theatre-goers and radio listeners thrilled at the sight and sound of Jimmy O'Dea singing the praises of the eponymous market trader Biddy Mulligan. 6 years after the death of Jimmy O'Dea, which occurred in 1965, Patrick F. Byrne, a journalist based in Rathfarnham, began delving into the history of the Gaiety Theatre, and the fruits of his most extensive research were published in 1984 in the Dublin Historical Record. In a letter to the Evening Herald in November 1989, Byrne reminded readers that he had in fact found a copy of Mrs. Twankey, the Queen of the Coombe, and could not help but notice that the words were exactly the same as O'Dea later sang it, except that Biddy Mulligan was substituted for Mrs. Twankey. Recorded by Dominic Behan and by Ronnie Drew and the Dubliners, there's no doubt that the song, the original and the amended, is as Dublin as the Liffey and O'Connell Street Bridge. And so ends the story behind Biddy Mulligan, the Pride of the Coombe.
I'm a buxom fine widow, I live in a spot in Dublin, they call it the Coombe. Me shop and me stalls are laid out on the street, and me palace consists of one room. I sell apples and oranges, nuts and split peas, bananas and sugar stick sweets. On Saturday night I sell second-hand clothes from the floor of me stall on the streets. You may travel from Clare to the county Kildare, from Francis Street on to Macroom. But where would you see a fine widow like me, Biddy Mulligan, the pride of the Coombe? I sell fish on a Friday, set out on a board, the finest you'd find in the say. But the best is me herdins, fine Dublin Bay herdins, there's herdins for dinner today. I have a son Mick, and he's great on the flute, he plays in the Longford Street band. It would do your heart good to see him march out on a Sunday for Dollymount Strand. You may travel from Clare to the County Kildare, from Francis Street on to Macroom. But where would you see a fine widow like me, Biddy Mulligan, the pride of the Coombe? On a Sunday I make quite a dash, the neighbours look on with surprise. With me Aberdeen shawly thrown over me head, I dazzle the sight of their eyes. At Patrick Street corner for 64 years I've stood and no one can deny that while I stood there no person could dare to say black was the white of me eye. You may travel from Clare to the County Kildare, from Francis Street on to Macroom, but where would you see a fine widow like me, Biddy Mulligan, the pride of the Coombe? You may travel from Clare to the County Kildare, from Francis Street on to Macroom, but where would you see a fine widow like me, Biddy Mulligan, the pride of the Coombe? Me boys, Biddy Mulligan, the pride of the